Hello and welcome back to Fusion Writing, where building character meets creating structure. We are in the second day, the map day of the first week of June in our fun course. And this course, we're talking about when conflict meets insight. So we're going to be talking about plotting, and we're going to be talking about the mental state of our characters. Two fun ways of interconnecting this information for fusion writing, hence the term fusion writing. Well, Victoria has some interesting stuff for you today here in the map section, where we get go a little more deeply into the material, and I'm going to turn it over to her right now. Victoria?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm going to take a top-down view because I want to show you my conflict matrix and some of the ways that I use it. So what you're looking at is my printout of the conflict matrix, which is the working document for my story. The reason I'm showing you this is I want you to understand how I use it. So the one that you'll get to print out it just has the themes across the top, and it has almost 100 kinds of conflict down the left side. So across the top, you've got personal, family, spouse, coworker, and so forth. And then down the left side, you have all of these different kinds of conflicts alphabetized. So for example, you'll notice that I've color-coded the top because that helps me identify things quickly. So my main female character, she's highlighted in pink. My main male character is highlighted in blue. I've got a coworker in dark pink because that coworker belongs to my main female. I've got job or team in green because her job plays prominently into green, which is the color for the book. So just a quick overview there. But look at what I've done here. And this is what I want you to consider. So in my spouse column, which is her boyfriend, essentially, you'll notice it says A2. All right, that means Act 2. And if you follow that over to where the conflict is, you see it's the word argument. Okay, so then we've also got just under that, we've got assault. But I've written A1, which means Act 1, and the word proxy. So something is going to happen. It's not a direct assault, it's an assault by proxy. So something else is going to intervene in Act 1. So that gives you an idea of how I use my document to go through, identify different acts or even chapters. In some places I've written the chapter number, which tells me, okay, in chapter 16, we're going to have a car accident or whatever. This is just a way for you to visually talk to yourself about the kinds of things that you can use to drive your story forward. So let me switch back and I will continue the conversation face forward. Back at the desk in the library, and I want to pick up that thread of a thought that I started to talk about, which is conflict. As you're thinking about your characters and thinking about the kind of story that you want to write, I don't want you to get locked in to the current thinking, which is kind of movie-based, right? It says that there's 3 acts to a story, that the story has to have a particular set of incidences and marker points. Those generally take a set amount of time. They revolve around a specific set of conflicts or challenges. And your hero goes through the story and arrives at the end, riding off into the sunset. That's very movie scripty. Well, we're not writing movie scripts. We're writing novels or works of fiction. So don't think for a second that you have to be locked into that 3-act movie style structure. If you refer to my plot cheat sheet, you'll notice that I've used 4 acts, and I've included 2 beats per act that help guide you in milestones through the story. That's just a guideline. You don't have to adhere to it entirely. You don't have to use all of them. You don't even have to use any of the plot points if you have your own idea about how your story needs to unfold. That's what's important here, because what I've learned from the research I've been doing, and the data is really good, there are 2-act, 3-act, 4-act, and even 5-act structures for novels. So I'm going to delve into those for you in a future posting, but suffice it to say for here, that I want you to be thinking of two things. The first thing is, what kind of conflict does your character need to push them forward, to drive them through the story, and to keep the reader on the edge of their seat wanting to know what's going to happen? That doesn't mean things have to be blowing up all the time. It doesn't mean there have to be kidnappings and car chases and all kinds of crazy big things. You could be writing a very quiet story. Maybe it has a less traditional villain. Instead of someone that wants to kill your protagonist, maybe your villain is someone who is there to challenge them so that they grow in a different way. It has nothing to do with straightforward aggression or conflict. It has to do with an inner journey that that character is going to take. Whatever kind of story you're writing, those are the two things that I want you to consider for this week. How does my character need to grow? What do I know about them that's going to help me write that journey? And then what kind of conflict or what kind of challenge, if you'd rather think of it that way, do I need to give this character in order to drive my narrative forward? So dive into your conflict matrix, hop over to LiLLiPub and grab it if you haven't already, download the grid, look through those lists of conflicts. I've left plenty of blank spaces so you can fill in your own. Maybe you want to pull from some of Kathleen's character challenge. Some of the most powerful books are written around a simple emotional or a character trait type challenge, not things blowing up. So think your story through, start to plot those points, and start to hang those little challenges and ideas around your characters to see how you can push them and how you can make them grow. With that, I'm going to throw it to my esteemed colleague, Kathleen, to take it away.
Thank you, Victoria. I enjoyed that very much. I really do look forward to when you're going to dive into some of that new research for us. And thank you so much for showing us your conflict matrix. It looks really powerful. And what we're going to talk about a little bit with insight today is a different level of conflict. We're going to talk about conflicts that don't play out physically, that play out in, it might even be conflicts between two individuals with the way they analyze a situation. Because with insight, we're going to be focusing on the judgment that has to be made. This is about, when you think about it, it's about memory, because you have to bring all of your past forward. Your character has to know all of the things that he's learned from the past to correctly judge the situation. It's about the ability to survey the situation and understand all the factors that are at play at the moment. And it's about shrewdness to determine what is going to happen into the future. And that other wonderful little interplay of when you need to bring in another person. Now, when you mix a villain into this, and as Victoria said, it doesn't necessarily have to be a out to get you villain. It could be an out to make you grow villain, as she pointed out. But the person that your protagonist is afraid of or has to confront or is not in a direct, comfortable relationship, let's assume that they, for the moment, that we do have someone who is a villain. How is that villain going to handle these circumstances? Villains tend to think very, very highly of themselves. They tend to think of their own insight and judgment as being far superior to their victims. So much so that they feel as entitled to gain their goods off their victims as they feel comfortable eating a bacon and egg breakfast without consulting the chicken or the pig. So if you don't want your character to be the chicken or the pig to the bad guy, that your character is going to have to be at or near the level of the villain in insight. But your character always has an ace up his sleeve that the villain will almost never include in their repertoire. And that is the ability to take counsel and advice from another. Because that villain is so sure of his own brilliance, he cannot conceive of another human being being able to give him anything of worth. And that is always a weak spot for the villain. And what's more, the villain can get so used to having it all sussed out and knowing how to carry his victim down the path and get his ill-gotten gains from him, that he forgets to do the full circumspection. He starts trusting his instinct. I'm made for this, I'm born for this, and that can give him 2 strikes against him. And once you've got 2 strikes against him, all you need to do is have a little bit of added cleverness, and you can topple your villain and let him fall flat on his face for your traditional bad guy villain. Now, for your character that maybe your main character is just frightened of, maybe that villain is a very demanding teacher, a very demanding boss, a mentor figure who is enough above your character that your character is afraid to approach him. That can also be a very interesting foil, because in that case, the supposed insight and magnificent brain of this other individual is taking place in the head of your character. It's his judgment of who this unapproachable other person is. And sometimes the story can hang around, is your character going to have the courage to consult this one he's so scared of to discover that this person is actually a regular human being and quite ready to help? So you have lots of play in there and different roles that you can play around it. But think about insight as being how your character brings his brain to the game and how the bad guys bring their brain to the game. It's all about the brain game when we're talking about insight. All right, so Victoria, do you have anything more to say before we start talking about our meeting on Saturday?
Oh, do I ever? That was superb. That exactly nailed the kind of challenges that we're talking about when we're talking about non-movie style conflict. That was beautiful. And you even kind of hinted at that other person, the person that your protagonist takes counsel from, the mentor figure. That role is a whole universe of its own that informs the progress and the progress of your main character and the defeating of your villain or your antagonist. So extremely well spoken and put together. I was just so excited. I was jumping up and down. So yes, lean into insight in your writing, people. Pay attention to those power balances and what perspective each person brings. That is gold when you're starting to break down, how am I going to get this story to move? I love it.
And don't forget to pick up your course materials here on LiLLiPub.org. It's a private community, not expensive. Right now, the dues are $8 US. And if you join at that price, it's locked in for life. If the dues go up, you never pay more. If you're not in the United States, it's price adjusted to your currency on the basis of $8 US. Now, what you get is you get Victoria's plot sheet. You get 2 worksheets from me, one called the Compass, which is how to start thinking about insight, and another with a more complete worksheet that helps you get going on using insight in your stories for days Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We have 2 days here on YouTube, but Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday take place in our private setting on LiLLiPub, where we talk about these ideas in post form. We discuss them in post form. And then on Saturday, we have a magnificent Zoom call where we all gather live in Lilligania land to talk about the character traits of insight and talk about conflict in story writing. So if you want to get your questions out, if you want to get into a really stimulating on a roundtable discussion, I highly recommend you pop on over to LiLLiPub.org and join us for the rest of the course. So we'll see you over in Lilligania land. Bye-bye.
Thank you.